In this last little bit of this lecture from Mesopotamia, I just kind of wanted to talk about, why is Mesopotamia so significant? How it's 2,000 years ago. What could possibly be? Why is it? Why do we still talk about it? There's definitely some legacies of Mesopotamia. That history is on the continuum of the past and the present and the future. So it's obviously things that were happening in Mesopotamia that influence the world around us today. So I just kind of want to go through some of those key points and elements, right, to kind of show, hey, that Mesopotamia is important to kind of know about, and there might be some things here that you're like, oh yeah, now that makes a little more sense. One of the first ones is just this idea of cuneiform. This is that Mesopotamia is one of the first writing systems to be established. As we'll see, almost every civilization does create their own different writing systems, but Mesopotamia did, and this is example of things they would write. This is the Rassam cylinder, this Ashurbanipal's record of his military exploits. Again, found in the libraries of Nineveh, so that's why we have all this information. The cuneiform tablets on clay also lasted a long time, more so than sort of papyrus that was primarily used in Egypt. So we just have a lot of information about it. And this is really interesting because they would write these cylinders. So instead of writing a book, right, you would write these cylinders. And again, when you make cuneiform, I gave a little video of Irving Finkel, who's a contemporary cuneiform scholar at the British Museum, about how to actually make cuneiform. But the thing about it is that you press it into the clay, and then if you were to, you can then roll sort of ink on here. Then when you unroll the cylinder, you can see the impression here of these words. So you can actually, so this would actually be a book that you would write all of this information, and then you could roll it out. Or if you had information to pass between people, you could write them in these cylinders and then move them around, and then people could unroll them and see. So these are like early books, early scrolls. Here's just sort of an idea of how cuneiform evolved. So a lot of them were first so the sun and star, and it, that they represented a pictogram, but then a lot of times just the word for sun or star, they took these just the sound, which then you can mix with other sounds. You kind of see how these emerge over time, right? That you have the sun and star vertical, then they rotate them, and then you can see these little cuneiform with these wedge shape. So you can see the wedge there. That's sort of very sun star looking, and then over time they get a little more simplified, and then as you're writing more and more, simplify them even further. So the word for star goes from this vertical line all the way to this these two three shapes here, similar to the sun, gets put down to these strokes there. And Irving Finkel actually talks about this in his how this how these are made, these wedge shape tablets are made. So cuneiform in the form of writing, again, Mesopotamia is that legacy is there with them. And then out of this literature, these ideas of Epic of Gilgamesh, that some of the earliest literature we have, some of the earliest stories we have recorded are from Mesopotamia. I gave a whole lecture on the Epic of Gilgamesh and the story. One of the important ones there I should talk about, right, is this flood story that within the Epic of Gilgamesh is the story of the flood, with the same figure of this Noah figure who's dictated to build this ark, right, to hold all of the animals, because I think it's the same deal. I think as gods are upset, so they're going to flood the land. So you can kind of see the impact of this flood story, this Mesopotamian story that was part of Epic of Gilgamesh, gets picked back up into the Bible, right, with Noah. And flood stories are pretty prominent throughout almost all civilizations. I mean, natural disasters in general. I mean, the explanation of them were, there's a lot of any natural disasters. A lot of them were explained in sort of supernatural ways. So you can see the whole story of that Epic of Gilgamesh, but then literature, the influence there as well. And a lot of epic themes in Gilgamesh are found in a lot of epic literature, as we'll see as this course goes along. And the big one here that we may take for granted is mathematics. The Mesopotamians set up a sextimal system. So everything is base 60, right? Which plays into, that's why we have 60 minutes in an hour, our time. And the way we keep time is Mesopotamian time. And base 60 is good because it's divided by so many things. By in base 6 in general, in 12 you have all these things that are divisible by it, and then 660 can go to 360, which is how many degrees are in a circle, right? So you see all of these very different than our base 10 system, which is what the metric system is based on, tens of everything. Here's an early mathematical equation of the base 6 system that is explaining circumferences. This 1 through 24, 51. So you can see that they understood geometry and how these base systems were able to be marcated and demarcated and known. So time. That's, if you ever wondered why there's 24 hours in a day, it's because of Mesopotamia, the way that they construed and counted times. This base 60 system. Another big thing that is sometimes attributed to what Mesopotamia is the wheel. That it started as a potter's wheel. They made a lot of pottery with the clay that was available in Mesopotamia and pottery, and then take this potter's wheel and turn it on its side to make a wheel that can be used for moving things, but also early chariots as well. So the wheels fitted to carts to move things, move products, and then ultimately, move people, and then as a form of war as well. So a lot of people sort of, I don't think we fully know if Mesopotamia invented it, but a lot of the earliest evidence we have archaeologically for wheels comes from Mesopotamia. Another nice thing that came from Mesopotamia, beer. Here's a picture. We have a lot of these. This is how people drank the beer. The Mesopotamian beer was a little bit different. There's a lot of particulates in it, so it wasn't as it was more like a Hefeweizen than that. It's a wheat beer, but beer was really important. Particularly, a lot of early alcoholic drinks were important because what you made them out of was boiled water. So a lot of things can get into water. So if you boil the water, then you can. That's a way to sort of sterilize the water. So people drank a lot of beer, more than just regular water. And this beer was a lot lighter than normal beer, very little lower alcohol content. But and also the particulates in it made it a little more nutritious. So beer, people, and beer is great. But people, it also served for nutritional values, and also health properties, right? By drinking beer, it was a lot healthier than water. And you can see, and they would drink them out of these straws too. It's kind of, again, you could put a little strainer on there so you wouldn't get all the gunk there. So beer, wheat, again, it shows the domestication of these plants. Wheat comes out, you make bread of it, throw a little yeast in there, it ferments, and then you get beer out of that. So another part of Mesopotamia is they have this old game they found. They're moving. They're not 100% sure how it all works. There's a lot of theories about how this game worked, but they think that what the modern game we have today is this game of backgammon, which of moving these things, and maybe even some backgammon games, forms of games being found in Mesopotamia. So we can kind of see that a lot of things were going on. A lot of things, we have 3,000 years of Mesopotamia. Maybe you could go back, if you want to say circa 5,000 CE, which these earliest cities were being built and complex societies were formulating, and then for the next, from about 5,000 to about 500 BC, so almost 4,000 or 5,000 years. Mesopotamia and these civilizations flourished, came together, and as we know, there's still peoples living in these regions today. So that's just a little bit of the legacy of Mesopotamia.